Next up is thragg. I made an analysis on TikTok about thragg, and I'm going to repeat some of it right here. We first must understand what is set up with the Viltrumite culture and how the average Viltrumite would think. The Viltrumites, as strong as they are against other species, are very vulnerable, physically vulnerable to each other. This physical vulnerability to each other and the requirement that each and every one of them has to have the strength to dominate one another causes them to have emotional distance that detaches them from other Viltrumites, and by that vector also detaches them from Viltrumite culture. Thragg, on the other hand, is fully invulnerable to other Viltrumites because of his strength, putting him in a different level above other Viltrumites. This is why we can see him get very emotional about the Viltrumite cause without being reprimanded by the entirety of Viltrumite society, because he's just that strong that he can be that emotional, and he's in the position of Grand Regent, which allows him to connect to other Viltrumites the way other Viltrumites cannot connect to Viltrumite culture. And this is most exemplified by the blowing up of the Viltrumite planet. If we saw that thragg was the only Viltrumite that cried for planet Viltrum being blown up, while the other Viltrumites just stood around, looked at the planet, and was like, because they didn't know how to process their own emotions, because they're so emotionally disconnected from themselves and others. So this gives us a clue to how other Viltrumites view Viltrumite culture. Every Viltrumite, when they talk about serving the Viltrum Empire and going through Viltrumite cause, describe it as more of a duty than a choice. They describe that choice within the framework of a duty, while thragg, on the other hand, describes it as his identity. He describes it as his identity because he sits on top of the hierarchy, and he's the most socially accepted Viltrumite. Which, ironically enough, is the exact opposite thing that happened with the character of Satoru Gojo. Satoru Gojo was so strong that he couldn't relate to Jujutsu Society. Jujutsu Society had a hierarchy which didn't allow him to raise to the absolute top of controlling the old hierarchy of Jujutsu Society, and they saw him as a threat. Therefore, he became isolated. On the other hand, thragg became insulated within Viltrumite culture because he was just that strong. That's showing how the title of the strongest can do different things for different characters. And that's why thragg's how a lot of people were making fun of his voice, always being no for Argyl's skull, didn't strike me, because he does have this emotional side because of all the reasons listed earlier. And him being reasonable to Mark at the very end didn't strike me too, because he has the most amount of humanity out of every other Viltrumite. And if we were to see in season 5 him a change from the comics and him go to Earth wouldn't affect him that much, because he already has that form of humanity intact from his privileged position of Grand Regent and the strongest, being the exact opposite reflection of who Satoru Gojo is, which this is why I have to put him into S tier.